Amphibians, a class of animals that is often overlooked, but they are way more interesting than you may have thought. Today, I will be teaching you all about them, specifically their life cycle, their history, individual species of amphibians. So let's start the intro. First, let's get the general information about amphibians out of the way. There are 4 groups of amphibians alive today: frogs, toads, salamanders, and caecilians. If you don't know, caecilians are legless burrowing amphibians. All amphibians have an aquatic stage in their life cycle. Amphibian eggs have to be laid in the water or else they will dry out. A great example of an amphibian life cycle is the frog or toad life cycle. They begin as eggs. Next, they hatch from the eggs as tadpoles. Then they grow their hind legs. Next, they grow their front legs and become froglets. And lastly, they lose their tail and become adult frogs. Now that I have that general information out of the way, I will teach you guys about the history of amphibians. Now, believe it or not, but amphibians were actually the first land vertebrates. Let me explain. So I think everyone knows how vertebrates moved onto land. You had fish like Tiktaalik that had very strong bony fins, and they went onto land for short periods of time. And over time, these fins evolved into legs, and the fish moved onto land. But I bet you didn't know that those first animals with proper legs were actually the first amphibians. Elginurpiton was the first amphibian to ever exist, that we know of. They lived in Scotland during the late Devonian period. They were about 5 feet or 1.5 meters long. They were apex predators. As the Earth entered into the Carboniferous period, amphibians thrived and diversified into many different forms. One of the reasons is that at the time, they were the only vertebrates on land, so they were able to take over most of the new ecological niches on land. Another reason is that during the Carboniferous, the Earth was very hot and humid, and there were a lot of lush plants and swamps. The Earth was the perfect habitat for amphibians at the time. You had amphibians like Diplocalus. They were 3.3 feet or 1 meter long. They were carnivores. Their skull looks like that probably because it created lift in the water. You had the Istopoda, a group of snake-like amphibians. One of the most important things amphibians evolved during the Carboniferous was the amniotic egg. Amniotic eggs are the stereotypical eggs that you can buy at the supermarket. This was a very important change for amphibians. Even though amphibians went onto land a lot of the time, they were still somewhat locked to the water, because like I said before, amphibians need to lay their eggs in the water or else they will dry out. The amniotic egg fixed that problem. The hard shells stored water and protected the embryo inside from the elements. These amphibians evolved into 2 groups, the synapsids and the sauropsids. The sauropsids are reptiles and birds. The birds would evolve later on though. The synapsids were the ancestors of mammals. So yes, at one point, our ancestors were amphibians. Technically we are still synapsids, but the word synapsid is usually used to describe the stem mammals. I talk more about them on my YouTube short series Permian Profile. So as the Earth entered into the Permian period, the synapsids and sauropsids started taking over all the ecological niches on land, replacing the amphibians, which had been there for millions of years before, but there are still 3 amphibians from the Permian that I would like to mention. The first one is Eriops. Eriops was a genus of amphibian. They lived during the late Carboniferous and early Permian in what is now the United States. They could get to 7 feet or 2 meters long. They were usually 5 feet or 1.5 meters long. They were carnivores. Eriops was semi-aquatic and filled the crocodile niche. The second Permian amphibian is Prionosuchus. Prionosuchus was a genus of amphibian. They lived during the Permian in what is now Brazil. They were 15 feet or 5.5 meters long. They were the largest amphibian to ever exist, that we know of. They were carnivores. They were also semi-aquatic and filled the crocodile niche. Only this time they convergently evolved to look like crocodiles. The third Permian amphibian is Tachyhystrix. Tachyhystrix lived during the Carboniferous and early Permian. They lived in what is now the United States. They were 2 feet or 60 centimeters long. They were omnivores. They had a sail on their back. like many other Permian animals. Now, if you watch my channel, you probably know how the Permian ended. It ended with the Great Dying, the worst mass extinction in Earth's history, but I will talk more about that in a future video. So as we move on to the Triassic period, amphibians did thrive for a little while because of heavy rainfall and the Permian mass extinction, which weakened the amphibians' competition. But eventually Earth fully healed, and as more aquatic reptiles started to evolve, they took over the aquatic ecological niches that the amphibians once held, and the amphibians were toppled from power, once and for all. Kind of the last of those giant amphibians was Coolosuchus. They lived during the Cretaceous in what is now Australia. The reason they survived longer than all the other giant amphibians is because Australia was too cold for most reptiles, and amphibians survive better in cold climates than reptiles. Coolosuchus was 13 feet or 9 meters long. They were carnivores and actually ate dinosaurs as part of their diet. They lived a life similar to today's crocodiles. Eventually, though, the climate warmed, and Australia became warm enough for crocodiles to live there, and Coolosuchus became extinct. Before we end this part of the video, I would quickly like to mention one more Cretaceous amphibian, Beelzebuffa, the largest frog to ever exist, that we know of. Beelzebuffa was 16 inches or 40.6 centimeters long. They were carnivores and actually ate small dinosaurs as part of their diet. They lived in what is now Madagascar. So now that I've talked about the general information and the history of amphibians, I will talk about some unique amphibians alive today. The first modern day amphibian I will be talking about is the axolotl. Axolotls are 6 to 18 inches long, or 15 to 46 centimeters long. They are carnivores. They are native to Mexico. They are a type of salamander. Those appendages that are sprouting out of their heads are actually their gills. Like other salamanders, axolotls can regenerate limbs that have been cut off. The next modern day amphibian is the Chinese giant salamander. Chinese giant salamanders are 6 feet or 1.8 meters long. They are the largest amphibian alive today, that we know of. In the first stages of their life they are herbivores, but as adults they are apex predators. As their name suggests, they live in China. They are nocturnal, which means they sleep during the day and are awake at night. The next modern day amphibian is the Wallace's flying frog. The Wallace's flying frog is about 4 inches or 10 centimeters long. They are carnivores. They are native to the island of Borneo. Like their name suggests, these frogs are able to glide. Their webbed feet act as parachutes when in the air. This allows them to escape predators and move through the trees more easily. The next modern day amphibian is the hairy frog. The hairy frog is 3 to 5 inches long, or 8 to 13 centimeters long. They are carnivores. They are native to the Congo rainforest in Central Africa. That hair on their bodies is actually dermal papillae. I am not sure if that's how you say it. They are probably used to increase the surface area of the frog, so that they can absorb more oxygen. I have not mentioned it yet, but amphibians actually breathe through their skin. And only males have that hair, and they only have it during the mating season. They also have retractable claws made out of bone. To get these claws out and ready to use, they have to break their hands. Let me say that again. They have to
break their own hands
for their bone claws to be able to stab through their own skin. This type of frog is metal. They use their claws for self-defense against predators. The last modern day amphibian is the poison dart frog. Poison dart frogs are 0.75 to 1.5 inches long, or 20 to 40 millimeters long. They are carnivores. They are very colourful and look harmless, but don't let their colourful bodies deceive you, because as the name suggests, they are poisonous. If you touch one in the wild, you will die. Some poison dart frogs have enough poison to kill 10 to 20 adult humans, or 2 African bull elephants. Usually in nature, bright colours indicate that an animal is poisonous, and poison dart frogs are a great example of this. But poison dart frogs actually don't make their own poison. They get their poison from the insects they eat. They store all the poison from those insects, and then they use that poison to protect themselves. They are native to the rainforests of Central and South America. Some tribes in the Amazon rainforest actually rub the frogs onto their arrows or darts to cover them in poison, and thus make their weapons more deadly, thus giving the poison dart frogs their name. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, it means a lot to me. Make sure to follow me on TikTok as well, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!